come step into the future with me and find out the wonderful things that are going to be taking place in the year 2060. Well, wake up, leaders. This is Glen, your cultural futurist and keynote speaker, helping you to unlock the power of your people. It is time for our executive coffee break. I have my beverage in hand. I hope you have yours too. They say you can't choose your family, but you can choose your workplace culture and your beverage, of course. My goal is to equip you with effective strategies to foster a culture of innovation, reduce workplace stress, and elevate team performance. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. So we are talking about the year 2060. Yes, I am a cultural futurist, and so this is my crystal ball. I got a crystal ball so that I can see the future. Actually, I don't use a crystal ball, but I do use data. I do use data to figure out what's going on. So actually, the Census Bureau has some great information. So if you are an employer and you're looking at things that you need to do differently, or you need to prepare for the future, there's a ton of information out there. Now, the key is trying to figure out what is actually going to happen using published data, but also looking at some of the fringe data that's out there to help you paint a picture of the future and see which forces are going to come to bear that will impact you in the workplace. Do y'all remember Professor Gadget, the robotic guy? He was kind of like the guy from Get Smart. But it was also a cartoon. He had his niece Penny. And this is one of the things, like if you are into strategic foresight, this is one of the things that you need to pay attention to. Now, Penny had a little book. You remember her little book that she had where it could do all kinds of things, her little magic computer book. And you like, man, that was so futuristic. It was so far off. Something like that could never happen. Well, we have it here. Here's my iPad. I can do a lot of things on it. I can control a number of different things with it. And it's just like Penny's book on the cartoon Inspector Gadget. So what are you paying attention to figure out what the workplace of the future is going to look like? So today I'm just going to talk about the Census Bureau, and there's some data out there. People have been doing some studies. So the year 2030 is a really important year, and that's not far away. It's 2024 now, right? In case you are not keeping up, it's 2024. I know this has been a long year so far, but it's 2024. And so in just 6 years, there's going to be a significant shift. And it's a turning point. Why? Because all of the baby boomers, yes, okay, boomer, all of the baby boomers will be older than 65. So we have this aging workforce that's coming to bear. And we're going to have some significant shifts in the population between 2030 and 2060. Currently, people that are older than 65 make up about, 17 to 18% of the population. In 2030, that number jumps to 21%. And then in 2060, that number jumps to 23%. So what are some of the numbers? So here's some numbers I want to share with you today. Right now, we have about 56 million people that are over the age of 65. In 2030, that number is going to be 73 million. So that's like 20 million more people in that demographic. And then in I know the math, I'm just rounding up, okay, for you math nerds out there. 2060, that number is going to be approximately 94 million people. So we're going to go from, that's another 40 million people that are going to be over the age of 65. So what does that mean for you in the workplace? What do you need to pay attention to as you think about the future of your workplace? All right, let's just start off. Healthcare, insurance. If you are a privately funded, self-funded healthcare employer, your costs are probably going to go up. Why? Because you're going to have more older people in your workplace. So you have to budget for that. This is how this future stuff works. You're going to have to start budgeting for that. How are you going to sustain the same level of benefits when you have older workers? That's something you need to pay attention to. The other thing, think about your physical layout of your organization. I had a friend of mine, and she's blind, and we had a podcast where we were talking about disabilities, and she said basically, hey, everyone's going to be disabled at some point. And that really struck me. Why? Because we all get older and we all will have some physical challenges of getting older. That's undeniable. Whether it's losing your vision, whether it's losing your hearing, whether it's lack of mobility, whether there's some cognitive decline, we all will get older. Prayerfully, hopefully we get older, right? We want to add years. And the thing is, we're adding more good years toward the end of our lives. And so, you know how they say 40 is the new 30 and all those kind of things. Well, in some sense, it's true. We have better health care, but we're living longer, we're living better lives, and we know the things we need to do to take care of ourselves. But it's expensive, right? It gets more expensive. There's medication, things that you have to do when you get older that you didn't have to do when you got younger. And so these things will impact the workplace, the workforce. So these are things we have to be mindful of as we plan for the workplace of the future, as you're outlining benefits, as you think about your costs of wellness programs. I'm big into employee wellness, but what are the right programs for your future workforce? Think about those things now. Get ahead of the curve. Why? Because you're more competitive. People will say, hey, this is a great place to work. They're going to take care of me and my family. Speaking of family, with an aging population, there are also some additional changes we need to think about family. There's the sandwich generation. I can't tell you how many of my friends, especially my younger friends, are raising not only their children, but they're also raising their parents. So you have 3 or 4 generations living together in a household. And that's really different for us in recent history. Now, maybe back in the day when people were living on a homestead and all those things, but now we have 40-year-olds, so we have our millennials who are taking care of their baby boomer parents, and then you also have their kids that are at home. So there's a lot going on, and it's stressful. Many of these older parents are having medical issues. They're in cognitive decline, and so at the same time you're taking care of a 65, 70-year-old parent, you're also taking care of a toddler, and that can be a lot. And I've seen it impact workplaces where people are less available for work, especially with some of the remote work. People are taking advantage of that flexibility to multitask and take care of their families, but sometimes it's at the detriment of their work. So how do you work at that? Is it just making people go back to the office? Maybe, but then some people are going to leave and go to these more flexible jobs. So there are some things on the horizon that I want you to pay attention to so that you can be prepared for these changing demographics. Now, one thing that you should know is that people are having less kids, or they're having kids later in life. So there are fewer children, population growth is slowing. So again, how does that impact you in the workplace as you think about the future? Well, less population, fewer workers, fewer homegrown workers, I should say. So immigration is going to be a source of human resources if you need to continue to grow and expand. Now, our population is still growing, but we're not growing these younger workers. We're having older workers. People are having less kids, and so the talent pool is going to shrink. So those are some of the challenges that you're going to have to deal with. And part of the work that I do with cultural competency is going to become more important than ever. A lot of the things that we do now are couched in racial language, but that will not necessarily be the challenges that we are faced. We have a very narrow view of diversity, equity, inclusion in this country, and it needs to go beyond just black and white, or black, white, and Hispanic is sometimes how we limit these conversations. But there's a big world out there, and there are black people from different countries, so everyone is not African American. There are black people from different places, just like there are Hispanic people from different countries. And each of these cultural contexts, they have their own way of being, thinking, and doing. And so we have to be more culturally competent as we think about the workplace of the future. What type of leadership challenges will you have? What type of communication challenges will you have when the population begins to shrink? Now, some people say, "Hey, this is horrible." Some people are afraid. Oh, they're going to be less white people. That's kind of how it's framed. Yeah, I could really say a lot about that, but the thing is, we've always changed how we categorize people, and so looking at how we treat these different racial categories is not as important as understanding the cultural shifts that are going to happen as we bring in a more diverse international workforce. What accommodations need to be made? Will we be able to communicate clearly with our new workers? And then how will we even deal with the shifts in family dynamics? That's going to be really important. Again, I talked about older workers and how that will impact families. And now we have to think about immigrants and their families. How will different family dynamics, different family expectations, how will that impact you, your work, and the benefits that people expect? And even our thoughts on leadership and power. Those shifts will be important. All of these things will have an impact on wages, wage expectations, benefit expectations. If you are in like the service industry, typically in the service industry, we've employed a lot of young people, right? When I was growing up, I worked at Astorworld in Houston, Texas. I made $3.15 an hour. That's what I made working at Astorworld. And they probably should have fired me, though. I'm thinking about some of the things that I did when I was growing up, and I just really didn't know. I was really clueless sometimes growing up. Really didn't think things through. But we're going to have to pay attention to that. We're going to have less young people, more older people. And so how are we going to shift these jobs and make the impact that we want to have with our customers and our clients? So shift is coming 2030. Then we want to think about 30 years from that, 2060. But again, 2030 is coming. I hope you all are prepared for it, but I want you to start looking toward the future in order to meet the needs and demands of your customers. So as always, let's not forget, better leaders get better results. So to every one of you leading the charge for a more supportive and engaging workplace, I leave you with this. Stay bold, stay inspired, and remember that your actions today shape the culture of tomorrow. My name is Glen. You all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.